On this episode of the Cowboy-Up Podcast, Russell and Stephen sit down with Greg Watson. Greg is a leading voice in Tucson where entrepreneurs and artificial intelligence experts connect. Greg guides business leaders, students, and anyone who wants to learn more about AI technology. Greg has been at the forefront of integrating AI into practical business education and is a familiar face at Pima Community College and the University of Arizona. He is best known as someone who presents complex technology in plain English. Between his engaging style and free online portal ProfessorWatson.com, he is dedicated to equipping students and entrepreneurs with the AI knowledge they need today to thrive in tomorrow's business landscape. Stay tuned as we delve deeper with an expert shaping the future of AI in Southern Arizona on this week's Cowboy Up Podcast. Welcome back to the Cowboy Up Podcast. If you've got a little west in your soul, then you've found the right place. We saddle up each week and talk about everything under the western sky, from dust devils dancing on the desert plains to the grit and grace of the folks who call this rugged land home. Pull up a chair, grab a beverage, and let's dive into the stories and happenings that make the West the one-of-a-kind place it is. Your host is Russell True, and I'm Stephen Clausen, and we are brought to you by the White Stallion Ranch and the Cowboy Spirit Radio Productions. How you doing, Russell?
I'm good. It's the weather's nice, and we're not as busy as we, of course, always want to be busier, but it allows us to do a little catching up as summer kind of starts to take
You hold. Always want to be busier. I want to remember that because when it gets crazy around here, I want to remind you that you'd like to be busier, right?
Yes, I have to. Well, I mean, sometimes, but I have to remind myself too.
Yes, there you go. We have a unique guest today and someone that I am really looking forward to talking with. And it is, he prefers to be called Greg, but I call him Dr. Greg Watson. He's got over 40 years of experience in entrepreneurship and education. He's recognized as one of the leading, if not the leading, business mentor and startup coach in Tucson. He's taught at, get ready for this, Pima Community College, the University of Arizona, Arizona State University, William Penn University, Eastern Arizona College, and he's mentored thousands of entrepreneurs and helped them launch and scale successful businesses. So how did I do on your introduction, Doctor?
You nailed it. That's pretty much my history. I went back to grad school and they introduced me as a serial entrepreneur. I had never really thought about that, but that's what I did. I spent my entire life building new businesses.
And after spending the amount of time with you I have and reading about you and helping you and allowing you to invite me into this world of AI, I have absolutely positively fallen in love and realizing that even at my old age, some of this is just not beyond me, and it's exciting. And I'm excited for you to share some of what you got.
Well, you hit one of those key concepts that you said that at this old age, and there's an awful lot of fear factors out there with artificial intelligence, because this is one of those cool technologies that oftentimes we think about tech and tech being one of those purviews of the young generation. We often think about calling up one of our grandchildren and having them help us with tech. But when we start experimenting and playing with artificial intelligence, you hit one of the really keys. The older generations, people with a little bit more experience, are the ones that are really the experts and the pros at artificial intelligence, because there's this old phrase, garbage in and garbage out. And when we start thinking about artificial intelligence engines, it's really just a computer that has this incredible brain behind it. And when we know how to ask the right questions and when we know how to evaluate the output that's coming out of it, those that have just a little bit more experience are the ones that know how to ask that question and phrase it with the words and the subtle differences that experience brings. And then when we get the output, they're better able to evaluate what is missing and then ask that AI brain that's out there, how to change the prompt that we're giving the computer to give us that better information. And so you hit it perfectly, that said that with the experience, I'm awesome. And you just said what? You took a little bit of time to play. So can you share a little bit of your experience of what it was like to get over that fear?
Well, it's been really magical. You know, when you first told me that people of my advanced age, and again, the first seminar that I attended with you, you asked how many people had really seriously fooled around with AI, and there were 2 people in the room, and I'm knocking on the door of 70 really loudly, and there were only 2 hands that went up in a room that was loaded with 25 to 80-year-olds, and my hand was one of them, and I was the younger of the 2. And when you and I talked after the class, and you told me that, you know, we've got the ability to actually get better answers, I initially thought you were just being kind, and you're not. I mean, you're a very kind man, but you're accurate. You're very correct, and it's been exciting.
It really is. And, you know, we hear a lot of things that are faddish, and they come and they go. And I really believe that artificial intelligence is one of these tools that's going to very quickly become embedded in everything that we do in all parts of our lives. Because when we start thinking about how we have the ability, most of us carry a smartphone, whether it's in a purse or whether it's in a pocket, and our ability to just carry on a conversation. Right now, we're often thinking about typing and typing in a question, but we can start to just engage with an artificial intelligent agent and say, can you book me a reservation at my favorite restaurant? And it will just be able to go and perform that task for us. Because does it already know a little bit about us and know what our favorite restaurant is? We didn't need to tell it what our favorite restaurant was. It knows our behaviors, it knows our practices, it knows our preferences, and in the background, it can just seamlessly go out there and book that reservation for us. And so when we start thinking about how the practical applications in our lives are going to start to transform over the next few years, it's just absolutely incredible. And as you've played with it, the tools just keep getting better. And it seems like right now, almost every 2 weeks, there's a new update and a new change and a new tool that's out there. So it's not that we have to become an expert with a specific tool because the technology is changing. We learn the tactics, we learn the strategies to be able to communicate and ask those intelligent questions. And that's just what is so revolutionarily fun about this, that I really believe it's going to become embedded in our day-to-day lives.
So I've never used it. And I've been around people that are roughly my age, and they're like Stephen and others who are pretty enamored. My definition of AI, and I set this up just so you can correct me and give us a good one, is that AI is essentially computer programming or software, whatever word you use, that has the capacity to learn and continues to do so. What is AI?
So there isn't one thing that is AI. Artificial intelligence is the combinations of not only the hardware, but also the software, the brains, and more importantly, the data that's sitting behind those. And so when we think about the language that we use from a technical perspective of how we train artificial intelligence, we train artificial intelligence on the data sets. And so it's machine learning, where computers start to learn from the data that is within its environment. And so different computer systems, different tool sets are now so powerful that we give them data sets and they can analyze and evaluate them and learn from them. They can learn from our behaviors. So inside of a business, they can start to analyze incredibly sophisticated data sets ranging from consumer comments, ranging from consumer buyer purchasing behavior to our own internal production metrics, our key performance indicators, and they can help us make intelligent business decisions. But in our personal lives, they can also learn simple things like our preferences of restaurants and appointments and how we like to communicate. So those data sets and those places and those tools, there is no one thing that is artificial intelligence. It's all of these machine learning capabilities, and AI is being built into all of the systems that we use in our daily lives, whether it's a business or whether it's us as individuals. And that's what's really exciting. I think that this is going to be one of those transformative moments as we look back and we think about what kind of a change the internet had on society. Artificial intelligence is going to be one of those very similar transformative events that the internet had.
No progress without pain, I think, in my general view of life. And
I think there's a quote about that. There's something about no gain without pain.
Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. So, there's all these people, some experts, some self-proclaimed experts that fear the other side of AI, and it's like Absolutely. 2001 Space Odyssey come to life. So what is that risk, and should we be worried about it, and do we have to get ahead of it now, and et cetera?
So that's a really very genuine and valid fear. If we think back to all of the science fiction movies, and it doesn't matter which genre of science fiction that you tend to prefer, you can be, there's a very famous movie producer of the Terminator series, or you can be the Roddenberry viewpoint of a utopian society with the Star Trek pathway. Science fiction tends to take one of those two pathways, that either the world is a destructive pathway or a dystopian better pathway. But if we look at science fiction, a lot of the things that we've seen in those old science fiction movies have become true. And so when we look at the technology, you have to believe that the challenges that we've seen in those old science fiction movies are going to be very, very real and be very, very real concerns. And so we should never dismiss someone that has very passionate beliefs about the risk of AI, the risk of those concerns. So I don't downplay those risks at all. But I really believe that we do have the ability as a society to manage those. When we go back and we look at the societal changes that we have, once upon a time, 70% of our population was employed out in the farm fields. And as technology changed, we moved from an agrarian economy to an industrial economy. And we went through some pain as that changed the job skills that were required in our society, in our culture, in our values, and our beliefs. We became much more urbanized as we moved from that rural agrarian culture, that rural agrarian economy. And so the world does change, and it isn't always comfortable, and it isn't always painless. And so will we experience? Never is.
No. It can't be.
And so, yes, it will never be painless. And so we now think about, how do we become AI literate? And so we in the educational system, which is what I'm now a part of, we think about, how do we create that AI literate professional? Because we don't really believe that AI is going to replace your job, but someone that is AI literate is going to replace your job. So those that don't change those skill sets, that don't upgrade their skills to become AI literate and AI friendly, yes, they're probably going to see that they're going to have the skill sets that are no longer in demand. And those that have the AI skill sets, they're going to be the ones that their jobs will change, and the routine, hard, mundane tasks that we used to do that used to take 16, 10, 20 hours, Now we're going to have AI do that. But haven't we gone through those changes before? A long time ago, we had that wonderful device, that Texas Instruments scientific calculator, and we've had spreadsheets and word processors. And we've moved from doing bookkeeping with huge paper ledgers to now we do all of our accounting digitally. So the world continues to change. And the question is are we willing to change with it? That's the real challenge. And I think that's the great fear is the fear of change. And are we willing to move with it?
That's always the biggest fear, isn't it?
It is.
With any new technology, machine, or anything else.
And it's hard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you're incredibly deep into AI. What started you getting this deep into AI? Because you're deep in this.
I am, and I found a passion and a love for it, but it wasn't me that opened my eyes. It was two young students of mine a couple years ago that I saw them go through what I traditionally would have done, an incredible amount of research on how to start and launch a new product idea for a new business. And these two students did an incredible amount of market research, customer validation, and they used artificial intelligence to do that preliminary research to kill an incredible amount of ideas. And the quickest thing that we teach in entrepreneurship is how do you evaluate ideas and kill bad ideas? Well, I shouldn't call them bad ideas, but ideas that are not market feasible. And these two students used artificial intelligence to analyze an incredible amount of market research, an incredible amount of data to come up with their business idea and really hone in on those customer pain points. What does the customer want? What does the customer need? What does the customer desire? And then they took the questions from that analysis out to do real on the streets, real live questions with customers. And then they took all that data back and they used artificial intelligence to analyze it and evaluate it and refine it. And they did this iterative process over and over again. And I watched and looked at how fast they were able to iterate. And they built a business and scaled it up incredibly successfully, incredibly fast, primarily using artificial intelligence tools. And that was the real convincing point, was watching these students. Now, in many cases, they asked me for, I'm going to call it bluntly, that wisdom of experience. So, we helped refine an awful lot of that research prompt, those research questions, how to do that research analysis. But the artificial intelligence tools, and here's that key, it allows the human mind, the creativity of the human mind to work faster, better, smarter. And that's my favorite phrase, my favorite mantra, is that artificial intelligence isn't necessarily going to replace us, but it's going to allow us to work creatively and work faster, better, smarter. And AI is going to do a lot of that bulk, hard, grunt work while we are more creative, and it's that faster, better, smarter mantra that's really cool.
That's remarkable. That is remarkable. Okay, we've got to go to a break. When I come back, when we come back, I'm going to ask you about what your vision is for the next 5 to 10 years and how AI might change our daily lives. So.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Stephen. And thank you, Dr. Greg. Wow, we're learning a lot of new things. My name is Stan. I'm Stan, the radio man, and I'm the leader of the What It Takes Radio Company and the Cowboy Spirit Radio Network. And I also have had another career. For over 35 years, just like Dr. Greg, I've been a business performance coach, helping people build a life of entrepreneurship, building small businesses, and I've got lots of experience in helping people build and survive and thrive and save small businesses. And that's what I do, and I think I do it pretty well, just like Dr. Greg. But what I also know is that AI will be a big thing. And I also know that podcasting and digital and audio and video marketing will be the future, enhanced by AI. If you are a business leader today, in any way, if you own a business, you're going to have to learn at least 2 more new things. You're going to have to learn about how AI will affect your business. And you're going to have to learn about how to use the marketing media, the radio, the video, the audio, the podcast, the performing arts. That is vital. Remember, Donald Trump made his money by doing building development. He became famous by doing television. And he won the presidency because he was, in 2016, the only candidate who had radio and television experience. So I just simply want to take this privilege, if I can, a personal privilege of saying thank you, Russell, thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Greg. And I'm so grateful when Russell finally decided, as a part of my coaching, that he wanted to become a person who would build his life and business by being a podcaster. If you'd like to think about that yourself, why don't you reach out to me? I'd like to help get you and your business and your career going by being on the radio. So reach out to me at stan@witradio.net, stan@witradio.net. And now, of course, let's go back to the radio program.
Okay, Dr. Watson, before we left on break, one of the questions that I think is important is, in the next 5 to 10 years, AI is going to be changing aspects of our daily lives. How do you see that shaking out?
So for most of us, artificial intelligence is going to continue to dynamically change, and it's going to increasingly get embedded into the tools that we use on our day-to-day lives. And what matters more is that we not get that we don't fall in love with a specific tool. And so those of us that are what we've used as a theme that are a little bit more experienced are very familiar with the concept that we learn the strategy of how to use AI because the tools are going to change. If we go back and think about the internet bubble, there were an awful lot of companies that started up to introduce brand new concepts about the internet and how we could do business on the internet and how we could change social relationships on the internet. There's going to be an awful lot of change of tools as we try to figure out exactly how we're going to use and integrate AI. But it's not the specific tools that are going to matter, but it's the strategies about how do you want to use this in your life. And if we think about what came out of COVID, people craved human contact. And so there will be a lot of people that will think about, oh, well, we can automate this with AI and we can do this incredible task with AI. But what's the human soul really care about? And we crave human interaction and human engagement. And so there will be businesses that will be created around incredible automation, but what does the customer want? And in many cases, the customers want that human connection. And so as we look at, you asked what's going to change over the next 5 years, we're going to experiment as a society. We're going to experiment with these tools. And there's nothing wrong with that experimentation. We're going to figure out what works and what do people want. What do you want? What do I want? And then we're going to come back to this human condition and find out what do people really want. And in many cases, we will keep coming back to this core concept of what is the human benefit and the human condition. And coming out of COVID, we really discovered that people really do crave human connection and human experiences. And that's where we're going to get with AI. We're going to automate away an awful lot of the mundane tasks, and we're going to retain that human experience and that human connection. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes complete sense. And in some aspects, it's going to completely change everything we do. And in other aspects, what I see is there's going to be subtle changes that are going to be, to the greatest extent, positive. And it may free up some time for that human connection that you spoke of.
Well, I look at it as it empowers us to be the very best that we can possibly be. So earlier I mentioned that dystopian view. Do we want the Terminator view of society where the world is heading down towards chaos and destruction? Or do we want that Star Trek view where we're heading towards a society where we each get to be the best that we can possibly be? And I really believe that AI is going to be that empowering, enabling capability that empowers and enables you to head down the pathway to be the best that you can possibly be, which I think is going to set a good tone for the rest of our conversation.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, and I love that to be true. Unfortunately, I think there's good and evil, and I don't necessarily mean in some sort of biblical sense. I just mean in experience. And so, you get the wrong people with the wrong power, and history has shown that goes really wrong. So I think it's like every other thing, whether it's atomic weapons or technology that follows that. I think there's always the risk that, and that's why I think a lot of people talk about the race to AI supremacy is critical, and that probably is very, very true. But to go off topic, because that's just my big picture analysis, that I think it's I hope you're right. I think it's going to be somewhere in between, and we got to hope the better of us have more control. But there's going to be some jobs that we don't look at as mundane. This is a real life story. A friend of mine was telling me very recently, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, that he was having his lawyer, a lawyer he felt was quite competent, general practice type, draw up a particular type of rental agreement. And so the lawyer presents him with the rental agreement, sends it over to him. He runs it through ChatGPT, and it comes up with 3 errors. And there were 3 errors that the AI program caught that the lawyer had made. And I was talking to a lawyer friend of mine lately, and she said, yep, a lot of lawyers are going to lose their jobs. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But maybe we have too many lawyers. We've said that for a long time. So it's going to be like every other significant, cars replacing horses and buggies and on and on and on and on. There's going to be realignments, right?
Well, there absolutely will be. And you hit one of my favorite industries. I like the tax side of the law business. And so my relationships are a little bit more on the tax side of how do we structure it. But Thomson Reuters, which is I'm not promoting a specific business, but they've introduced a product called Copilot, and the title of that product, it's designed to focus for both the legal industry, the accounting industry, the business consulting industry. They service a whole bunch of these industries, and it's intended to be an AI co-pilot that sits right beside your attorney. And it's a tool that the attorney will use so that attorney won't make those 3 errors, because your attorney will have that AI co-pilot working side by side with them. So when we think about AI, the AI will be there to access this incredible database of knowledge and the repository of the best legal practices and the best tax practices, and will be able to engage in an analysis of not only the client records, but the best practices across industry, and be able to say, because this client does this and does this and does this, and we've got access to the client's confidential records, we can customize this rental agreement with these best tax practices that are going to go along. So let's do these additional, not only those 3 errors that were caught, but let's do these additional 2 items that will better optimize strategically for your client. And so I view it as more of a better tool set where we use that little mantra, we're working faster, better, smarter. So I'm not so convinced that because the attorney's job is never going to go away, but the attorney is going to have this tool set that allows that attorney to work faster, better, smarter. And I think it's going to empower that attorney to better understand my specific situations and my custom needs, and be able to provide me those specific insights and best practices that are custom tailored to my unique needs, not just a general cookie cutter rental agreement.
So that and it was sort of a specific one. I think that maybe was the source of the errors. But yeah, no, I get it. But
you're absolutely right. We're on a pain path for 3 to 5 years as we make this migration.
Yeah. Well, and maybe if lawyers are able to use the Copilot, there's going to be fewer needed, and that maybe they can apply their intellect somewhere else. But it made me think of unintended consequences. So you brought up tax. So when I went to college quite a long time ago, one of the required courses for my major was tax accounting, and the IRS regulation book was somewhere. It was phone book type paper, and it was about 6 inches thick, literally, and not one human being on the earth could have known even close to. I can't imagine what percentage they could have actually known. And some experts said some of that was even contradictory. I'm sure it still is, probably more so. So it makes me think that when you have AI on the payor side, those of us who are paying taxes, and then you're going to have AI on the government side, which would be the IRS, and these huge forces of data that are being used as you're describing, if that doesn't create a simplifying of, for instance, in this case, the tax code, I'd be shocked. I think that because otherwise it's going to become such a battle of the detail of the subsection this of page 1202 that it's just going to naturally simplify this example, our income tax process. Could that be an unintended consequence of this amazing sophistication of using these data sets?
Well, now you and I are going to do role reversal, because you were previously being the skeptic and I was being the optimist. And I'm afraid that now we're going to role reverse this, because you were asking whether you think AI is going to help simplify things, and I'm going to say, well, with these incredibly powerful tools, I don't think that there's going to be any motivation for government to actually head down the pathway of simplifying, because now they can just keep adding those telephone-sized books of tax regulations every single year, and we don't have to worry about it because we've got AI tools to help do the analysis.
Well, I'm sure you're right, but it seems to me that it's the person who really makes out in tax law is the person who really dives into those weeds and comes up with the innovative strategy that saves their clients taxes or themselves, and the government side AI is assuming they have equal quality AI. It's going to be an interesting little battle, and that's going to happen in a lot of industries, isn't it?
It really will, and we've been fighting those battles for who has the deepest. I'm going to call them attorneys and consultants and tax researchers. We've been fighting that battle for 50 years, And I think that private industry is always going to come up with, ahead of government in terms of who has the most sophisticated tools, because we're going to spend the money to try to figure that. Yeah, we're going to try to just figure that out, how to find the best tax structures.
Well, a friend of mine has been a CPA for years, and the thing he consistently tells me is whenever the government comes out and says with this Tax Simplification Act, that's essentially a full employment act for accountants.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think that's wrong. I don't think it's wrong. So, do you think AI is going to eventually get into arts, and do you think it'll ever create art?
So it was a fun week this last week because Google introduced VO3, depending upon how you want to pronounce it, and it is cinematic realistic, both in the visuals, the background motions, and the audio. Now it's only able to generate at this point in time, 3 to 5 seconds worth of content, but when you've got the ability to create cinematic quality video, that is truly genuinely scary.
I saw that. They had it on the news, yesterday or day before?
They did, and it's incredibly good. People poked a lot of fun at Coke doing an AI-generated commercial around Christmas this last year, and it was a little bit kludgy, but it was a really good first effort. And when we talk about how fast AI is iterating, and I made a comment earlier that about every 2 weeks there's a new level of iteration that's coming out right now. That's why I don't want to get hung up on any specific tool today, because what we say today, 2 weeks from now, it's going to change. And so those of us that focus on strategy about how we use the tools rather than the specific tools, that's where the real value and the expertise is going to lie. Because as we build the AI skills and the AI strategies, it's just going to keep getting better and better and better. We've got the ability right now to stitch together these 3 to 5 second segments of video and create an incredibly high quality 30-second commercial. And if you think about how long the average television commercial is, they're 15, 20 seconds to 30 seconds long. And so a small business that perhaps couldn't afford that, $80,000 to $400,000 cost of creating one of these really high quality, production quality television commercials, they're now going to be able to produce with just a couple $1,000s a cinematic quality television commercial. So the question is AI going to eliminate jobs? Because that's the fear factor. People think that, AI is going to be able to do this, and so it's going to eliminate jobs for all these creative people. Well, is it, or is it going to just empower them to do a lot more work? And I think that it's going to create incredible opportunities, because small businesses that never would have advertised before are now going to be able to do that. But the difference between the ad that is going to convince customers to take action, we call it a call to action in marketing terms, is going to be who has the best creative team. And that still requires the human in the middle. And so as good as AI gets, AI cannot do anything that hasn't already been done before. It's because it's always going back to that data set. And so it's going to use the data that it has the ability to access and review. And so we still need the creative people to do the human ingenuity and the human creativity component. We're just going to work faster, better, smarter.
So you're saying in that context, the next Picasso who transformed art, you like it or you don't, it's not the point really.
Correct.
One of the most valued artists in history totally transformed what he was doing, what people before him had done. That's never going to come out of AI, you're saying, because it's never been that transformative thing. It's never going to happen. from AI.
You did an awesome, beautiful job of nailing it there. Picasso is not coming out of AI. All of the copies of Picasso will come out of AI, but Picasso is not coming out of AI.
Interesting. Okay. Now, I'm approaching 70. Do you see the day that these amazing robots, and boy, do I want a robot. Oh my goodness. I can't help it. I just want a robot. I see what they can do. Do you see them getting to the point where robots can start working in elder care facilities and child care facilities?
Japan's been working on that for 20 years. And so if we look at the state of robotics, it has moved dramatically forward. When we think about the convergence of technologies, we have a convergence between the speed of hardware, the speed of the brains of the intelligent processing, and the convergence of software right now. So we're at this little inflection point that AI has finally gotten to the point where it has that convergence of speed of hardware, the programming. We're at that point where everything has just conveniently fallen together. Machine learning is not new. The concepts of artificial intelligence are not new. We've been working on machine learning and AI for 20 years. So these concepts have been around for a long time. But when you get the combination of hardware, software, processing that all pulls it all together so that it finally now all works, then we have that vertical curve where we start to scale the applications of it. Companies have been working on robotics, and it's the brains of robotics that have always been the real challenge, and their ability to interact with their environment. We've had robots in manufacturing plants that do repetitive processes over and over again for decades.
Yeah.
But they've never been able to do things in a dynamic environment. So when you talk about elder care, we're now finally at that point where that is becoming a possibility. We're probably just a couple years away from those capabilities with robotics. Now, whether we want to trust that in the absence of a human companion, so we're probably going to be more likely to see those situations emerge where you used to have two nurse aides going into a hospital room to perform a function, and now you're probably going to have a nurse aide and a robot go into that room to perform that function.
Maybe in that scenario, when you talk about the need for human interaction, the craving, I think you used the word. I mean, maybe that's one of these wonderful aspects, because then maybe that opens up to, instead of negative personal interaction, which sometimes these elder care places, the folks who are there are not necessarily getting great treatment all the time. Maybe the routine care is done by the robot, and nicer people have nicer attitudes, and the people receive better personal interaction. Maybe that's a good one of the many good outcomes. We've gone way over, and I have lots of questions because it's such an open field for me, but I feel like we've got to end with I'm not a particularly technical person. I sometimes think it's a little bit of an advantage for me when I look at things like social media and review platforms and different things, because I have sort of a broad look at it, because I don't get lost in the weeds, because I don't even know where the weeds are. And so, but for people like me and other sort of resistant to tech, or just folks that are uncomfortable with it, whether it's just whatever reason, what should they be thinking about and learning about all this broad field of AI? Because otherwise they're going to get run over by it, right?
They will, but we've been here before, and we've survived technology changes. So we've moved from word processors, from typewriters. We've moved from slide rules to calculators to spreadsheets. So we've made these transitions throughout our society. This is nothing new. We're going to adapt, and we're going to adapt quite well. The key is for us to just get involved and start practicing and playing. We're going to have AI being built into all of our tools, and so if you want to start playing, almost all of our tools out here have a free component to it. And I think that's one of the key things, is that a lot of people are afraid that, it's going to cost me something. I don't want to get stuck with a $20 a month subscription. And right now, almost all of the artificial intelligence tools out there, whether it's ChatGPT or whether it's Perplexity or whether it's Google's Gemini, they all have free components that are available. And so we can sign up and create an account and just start playing and start practicing and engaging. And when I said that the tools will change over time, we're going to find the new tools, we're going to find the new processes and procedures. And if we develop the mindset, the strategy in our mind that says that I'm going to engage with these and find out what works and is relevant in my life, and I'm going to take advantage of that, and I'm going to set aside the things that are not relevant to me until the time that they are, I'm going to adopt a positive attitude, and I'm going to practice and play and build the skill sets with my free tools.
And that's the great, and that is it. I hadn't thought about it, but that's, I know I could go on and on. Different people tell me, Chat GPT and something, Otter or something that takes the audio and writes it. There's a list, obviously. And so the idea is grab one of those free applications and just toy with it, and you're going to get comfortable. And so that's the advice I'm going to give myself later on today, and that's the way forward. And then people like me who are in business, and AI is going to have a big impact in hospitality. And if we don't engage, we're going to get run over. And we try, and we're not always cutting edge, but we like to be close enough to see the cutting edge. So we need to get on it. So thank you for this.
Okay. Is there any way that they can get a hold of you, learn more information?
Where do they go?
So I teach at Pima Community College, and I'm always accessible through the college, but I also have ProfessorWatson.com, and that's just my website. I tend to be part of this older crowd, so I don't sell you anything. And if you hit ProfessorWatson.com, there is a sign-up page that occasionally I will send out notifications of workshops that I do with a variety of organizations when they are free and open to the public. And so I would just encourage you to hit ProfessorWatson.com and sign up for the newsletter. I do not send a newsletter out. It just sends notifications of when we're doing something new in the community.
And he does this, and I'm on that website, and I love it.
Perfect. Well, thank you. We've taken a lot of your time. So
thank you, Doctor, very much. Remarkable.
It's a pleasure, and I love being part of this older generation. I retired when I was 42 years old to go back and teach, and I was told that what better way to stay young than to be around young minds.
Oh, so true.
There you go. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good day.
Bye.
Bye. Russell, I listened to Dr. Watson, and having attended a couple of his classes and listened to a couple of his lectures, he has invited me into something that I can tell you 6 months ago I would have not gone into willingly. And I've embraced it, and sure, I've skinned my knees a couple of times, but the more I skin my knees, it's those times when I'm learning and being able to bring things to the table for other people. It is a very exciting time. And he's given me the courage to look at this stuff and at least try it. And wow, the change has been remarkable. And I feel like I'm 20 again. And I pretty much know when I look in the mirror, that's not the truth. But it's been fun. It really has. What did you think of it?
Well, I never used it. I think about it a fair amount because it's talked about a lot. And the most positive thing I heard today, I get all its applications, and I talk to people who are using it daily, and I remember we had a young guy working for us, and he was just thrilled because he had engaged ChatGPT to do some of his work that was just routine work here, and it had done it for him in instance, and it was just so easy and so wonderful, and so I get all that. I just hope we don't get lured into some sort of situation that isn't good, and I try and understand the big picture. The most positive thing I heard today is that AI is not going to be the next Picasso, if we use art as our metaphor, and I hope that it stays that way. I'm sure that Dr. Watson knows what he's talking about, but this thing that AI seems like it's something that can become its own, take on a life, quotation marks, of its own, and that's what concerns me. And as long as it can't get beyond what it already knows, then maybe it won't envelop us in the way that some people expect.
We shall see.
Again, I'm proud to say, not on behalf of me, but on behalf of the wonderful people who I have the privilege of presenting on the radio, you really learn more here by accident than most places by design. So I'm going to suggest that you keep listening to the Cowboy-Up Podcast, and maybe, as I said, think about doing one yourself, but also take time to, why don't you have a little bit of a cowboy entrepreneurial adventure? And think about that. Remember, this program, this comes from a kind of a magic place, the historic White Stallion Ranch in Tucson, Arizona. And of course, it's getting pretty warm, but we are still open through the warmth, and it could be just exactly the time and place for you to have a family, or maybe a couple, or an entire company little cowboy adventure in life and business. So why don't you think about that? whitestallion.com, and we'll find a place for you on this historic ranch place. And so, and by the way, if you want to go a little bit cooler, we also have friends and colleagues in ranches that are up in the northern area where it's a little bit cooler in the mountain and in the north. True Ranch Connection will find a place for you. So check us out again at whitestallion.com, whitestallion.com. Thank you. Please recommend us, and please come back. All the best and blessings to you. Have a great summer, Drive safely, take care of one another, show a little more love and kindness, and of course, be a little bit of a blessing to others. Tip your hat, and take care. Bye for now.